Hey, so what's going on, everyone? So today we are going to do another haul video. So I've been getting asked about why I currently only have two on the playlist on my channel. One is for the books I have been featured in from Black Hair Press, and the other one is the collection of signed books I own. And the truth is, I just don't own a whole lot of books from a lot of different authors. And I'm also in the process of moving, so the ones that I have a lot of books of are currently in a storage container. And right now, that's a lot of boxes I would have to get through to find some stuff. So, I do, however, have some stuff right here for a new haul video. So today I am going to be showing off the books that I appear in that have been compiled by UK best-selling author Samie Sands. So my introduction to, meeting Samie probably took place in summer of 2018, I believe. 2018 is the year I started doing a lot of anthology appearances, so I joined a lot of anthology submission groups on Facebook and a couple of different interest groups just on general websites and stuff. And around this time was when Samie was doing open calls for a carnival themed horror anthology. So when I first started doing anthology submissions, what I would do is I would buy a book from the publisher, or in this case the compiler, and see what they're looking for. This way I can say, hey, this is what they enjoy, this is what they like, this is what they expect. That way, when I start writing, I know what to send. So the first thing I bought, I'm not in this one, this is my research one, is It's Behind You. So this is my first, this is what I thought was the first project from Samie that I thought I'd bought. I found out after buying this that I do have the first two books from her AM13 series on the Kindle. So when I found out who it was that I was actually submitting to, I was like, okay, I've got to make sure my story's good. So I read this. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. There's definitely a lot of good stories in this book. Definitely check this out if you get a chance. It's Behind You. So I start working on my short story for the carnival themed anthology. And around this time was when I was working on my novel, The Escape of Ernest Frost. For those that have never read it, it's about a guy who gets kidnapped by a group of clowns and has to make his escape from wherever they've got him held captive. So I went through some of my notes and I changed a couple things from the novel to what I did for my short story. There's certain things I thought fit better with the novel compared to what would make for a decent short story. So in October 2018, my story, Make My Escape, made its way into Sideshow. So this is my first ever Samie Sands anthology appearance. And if you've ever seen me at book festivals, Comic-Cons, random conventions, places where I sell my books, then you've seen this book. And one of the reasons you still frequently see this book, even though I've appeared in multiple anthologies that Samie's put together, is regardless of the response for the book, it's still something people want to check out. Like if you go on Amazon and look at this right now, you're going to see it has a lot of mixed responses. It has everything from this book is great to I hope these people don't give up their day jobs. But at the end of the day, the fact that it has mixed responses has been one of the things that's helped it. I remember when I was selling copies at one of the Comic Cons I went to, and someone looked up my books on Amazon and saw where that and my poetry book, The Paradox Complex, were the two books that had the most reviews at the time. And the person told me, I'm going to get Sideshow because it's got so many mixed responses. I know I need to read this and make my own decision. And that's been something that a lot of people have liked about the book. Even if they don't end up liking the book as a whole, they know that they're in a position where they can make their own decision. They don't have anything swaying them one way or the other. So that ended up doing really well. Samie gave me some really good feedback. And shortly after the release of Sideshow, she had announced 3 open calls: supernatural, medical themed horror, and zombies. So I already had a really cool idea for the medical themed one. I had a really cool idea, well, sort of cool. I thought it was cool idea for the zombie one. But the first one that was coming up was supernatural. And I did not have an idea on what I wanted to do. And I wanted to submit something because I already knew that in 2019 I wanted to just get as much content out there as I could. So I'll look up a random demon, I write a story. It was a Saturday night, I believe I wrote it. Submitted to Samie. And sometime Sunday afternoon, I got my acceptance. My first anthology appearance of 2019 was Evil Lurks. This collection features my story, Anzu Rediscovered. You're going to find out a little bit more on that one later on. And if you look at some of the reviews, you will actually see that my story was one that was considered a standout, which was really, really cool given some of the mixed responses that Sideshow got at first kind of got to me at one point. I was like, man, some of those kind of hurt. But with Evil Lurks, the reviews were a little more positive. I had a lot of positive responses towards my story specifically. And like I said, at the end of this video, you're going to see a little something else regarding my Evil Lurks story. So shortly after that is when the medical themed one came out. So I already knew what I was going to write at first. When Samie announced it, I already had an idea. I was like, oh, I got something. I'm going to write this down. I waited until after Evil Lurks came out before I submitted it because I didn't know how much stuff Samie had on her plate. So I waited a little bit before submitting it. So I sent it. And shortly after I submitted my story, obviously it got accepted since I'm here talking about it, Samie told me she didn't have a whole lot of people submit to this one compared to Evil Lurks and Sideshow, and asked me 2 things. Can I write a second story, and do I know anyone that would be interested in submitting to the medical one? So I wrote a second story that I didn't like as much as the first story I sent, but I thought I did pretty good. And obviously, again, we're here talking about it, so obviously it got accepted. And I have a friend who is a journalist. And because of his journalism taking up a lot of his time, he doesn't get to do a lot of fiction writing like he used to. He doesn't get to write a lot of poetry like he used to. But the stars aligned in this particular case, and I was able to send him something like, hey, a friend of mine is putting together a book. I know that you like writing horror-related stuff. You need to submit something. And he was like, all right, let me see what I can do. What's the minimum word count so I'll at least know what to expect? I said, 500 words. You can do that, right? He's like, I think I can do something. I'll do something for it, all right? So not only did I manage to get 2 stories in here, but a friend of mine managed to get in here as well, and that was really cool because it's someone that I know personally. So my third appearance in a Samie Sands anthology is Pandemic. This features my stories Dr. Frankenstein and Spread the Infection. And it also features my friend Xander Price with his story, The Patient. Anyone who has read this, please put in the comment section below what you think of Xander's story. He does regularly comment on my videos. And I would really like to see him eventually put out a compilation of his own, because he's got some stuff that's never been released. He's written some stuff that's went out of print. So, Samie, thank you for accepting one of my friends. Unfortunately with this one, so the first story I submitted was Dr. Frankenstein, and the second one I submitted was Spread the Infection. I thought Dr. Frankenstein was great, and that story has gotten trashed. People have put some decent reviews and have said, well, the first few stories absolutely suck, but everything else is good. My story's the opening one in the book. It's kind of funny how Anzu Rediscovered I wrote in 2 or 3 hours, and that's considered one of the best stories that I've written for Samie. Dr. Frankenstein, I spent some time putting that together. I already knew what I wanted to write. And yeah, that one doesn't get accepted as much. And yet Spread the Infection, the one that I didn't think was good, gets better responses. But either way, Pandemic's still worth checking out. So the third in that open call series was Zombies. So my first story I wrote, I was like, all right, I got an idea. I'm going to do something kind of Walking Dead inspired. And by that, I don't mean that I wrote Walking Dead fan fiction or anything like that. What I mean is, for those that are unfamiliar with The Walking Dead, in the comics and in the TV show, you don't have to be bitten to get turned into a zombie. So I thought, okay, I want to do something like that. And I had an idea, and I had a little twist at the end, submitted it. Again, we're sitting here talking about it, so obviously it got accepted. So with this one, Samie had a fair number of people submit stories. However, she was also in a situation where a lot of people said, hey, is there any chance you can extend the deadline for this one, because I don't have enough time to finish my story right now. And a lot of people that have been in Samie's anthologies are people that are recurring people. So she knew them well enough to go, hey, we're going to push the deadline back a little bit, so if you're already in here, go on ahead and submit a second story. So I wrote a second story as well for this one. And with this one, my second story, I kind of took notes from Scream 2. For those that don't know, Scream 2 is when they have the movie Stab. Stab is basically a fictionalized story from what happens in the first Scream movie. And that's what happens throughout Scream 2. So I thought, I'm going to do something like that. And also with this being a zombie thing, I wanted to find some way to pay tribute to George Romero. So I named the director of the movie George Romano. And after Undead Wars came out in April 2019, this features my stories What Happened to Emily. That's the one that is inspired by The Walking Dead. And When the Camera Stopped Rolling. So like Anzu Rediscovered, at the end of this video, I'm going to have something else I'm going to bring up regarding When the Camera Stopped Rolling. So there's that one. So after those 3 came out, Samie did another open call for 3 more books. Twisted Romance, Curses, and Cults. At the time when she announced these 3, I had written a lot of romance stuff at the time. And even though Twisted Romance and regular romance are not necessarily the same thing, I was kind of burned out on writing romance. So I did not submit to it. However, for anyone who wants to check out the book Love Hurts, I highly recommend it. There's some really good stories in there. And some of the people that have worked with Samie in the past that are in Love Hurts, some of their best stories are actually in that book. While it does kind of suck now thinking about it, like, hey, there's a lot of good stories in there, I still stand behind why I chose not to submit. But you still need to give up, at least check out Love Hurts at some point whenever you get a chance. So during this time, Samie has been very helpful with me being able to get my name out there. At this point, I'm now in 4 of the anthologies that she's put together. She has mentioned checking out some of my other stuff and telling me what all she liked and didn't like and giving me really good feedback. And I wanted to be able to return the favor. Like, whenever someone helps me out, I want to be able to help them back. So I told Samie I was going to buy one of her books and do a review at some point. And after looking at it, I was trying to figure out I didn't want to do the first 2 AM13 books because both of those already have massive numbers of reviews anyway. So I looked through her bibliography and I found something that was a little bit different than what she normally does. I was like, all right, I'm going to check this one out. And at this point in time, I was doing a lot of writing. For those that are unfamiliar, in 2019, I released my 4th novella, a novella collection, and I appeared in 50 plus anthologies throughout 2019 alone. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. So the trade-off was my reading had kind of decreased in the process. So I wanted to find something that wasn't a really thick book as well. So I ended up buying Living on Borrowed Time. Now, most of the books I'm showing everyone throughout this is all in the horror genre. This is very much a contemporary story. And it's a really, really good book. I can definitely say from reading this compared to reading some of the other stuff that Samie's written in the past, this is very much a passion project that everyone should check out. And for those that want to read something that's not in the horror genre, here you go. I gave this a 5-star review on Amazon because 5 is the max that they'll let me do. So after Samie finished up everything with Love Hurts, the next anthology was Curses. So I had a story I had written in 2018 about a warlock that's a cannibal. And he does spells where he turns people into pizzas so he can get away with his cannibalism. It was initially written for one publisher that wanted something kind of B-movie inspired. And my story got rejected. So I'm still sitting on this story. And another publisher I'd worked with had also announced something where they said they wanted something involving witches or warlocks. Well, the story that I had originally written, titled The Doughboy, was only about 1,500 words. So I had to expand the story from 1,500 to 3,000 because the minimum word count for the second time I tried to publish it was 3,000 words. And unfortunately, it also got rejected. However, I do own that particular book, and it makes sense why I got rejected. They were looking for a lot of fantasy stuff, and mine's B-movie horror. So I message Samie, and I tell her, hey, I think I've got something for the Curses anthology, but got a couple questions. One, are you okay with something B-movie inspired? Because this is some really cheesy stuff, and I'm not saying that because it involves pizzas. I'm saying it because it's B-movie inspired. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And she said, yes, absolutely. Send me that when you can. I was like, all right, cool. I have another question. I initially wrote this flash fiction piece. It got rejected. I tried submitting it somewhere else that involved me having to write it as a 3K word short story. Do you want me to send you both versions and you pick which one you would prefer, or would you want me to just send one over the other? And if so, which one would you prefer I send? And she said, hey, just send both and I'll let you know which one I want to use. I was like, all right, cool. So I submitted my stories, Doughboy and The Warlock and the Pizza. So unfortunately, during this time, there were some issues with some of the stories not being able to be accepted right away, and Samie wasn't able to release it right away. So it didn't come out until March of 2020. So before the release of the book, Samie sent everyone a digital version just to make sure that we're happy with what we got. And I'm looking through it, and I noticed something. Both of my stories are in there, and I was kind of surprised. I was like, so I sent her a message. I'm like, hey, both my stories look good, but I do have a question. Any reason why you used both stories? They're the same story. Only differences are Doughboy's told in first person, Warlock and Pizza's told in third person, and Warlock and Pizza has like 2 extra characters from where I had to expand upon the story to make it 3,000 words. I said, no, both of them seem different enough, and I liked both of them, so they both went in. And one of the other authors that's in the book also told me how much she enjoyed my stories in here. So, Malediction came out in March of 2020. It features my stories Doughboy and Warlock and the Pizza. So the final one of those 3 is cults. Now, when I first saw this one, I already knew what I was going to write because I have a short story that had been previously published that involves a cult. However, it was published through a publisher, and that book is still available to this day. So I, once again, like I did with Malediction, I sent a message to Samie and said, hey, I've got an idea for a story, but it is connected to a previously released short story of mine that's still in print. Is it okay to send you the story once I start working on it? And she said, hey, just be on the safe side, check with the other publisher, make sure they're cool with you doing this. All right, cool. So I sent a message to the publisher that published the first story. I said, hey, I want to write a story connected to the story I submitted to you, but it's going to be with a different publisher. Is that okay? To which I got the response, absolutely, go for it. Just can you do something to let people know that the 2 stories are connected? I was like, yeah, I can do that. So in 2018, I had a short story published called Wingreen Possession, where you find out that this haunted house is haunted by ghosts that were once part of a cult. And in One of Us, I tell the story that the ghosts that are part of that cult were not lying when they were telling the kids in the story about the cult they're a part of. So Wingreen Uprising tells the story of what happened to the Wingreen family before they became ghosts in Wingreen Possession. So, and for anyone that would like to read the story Wingreen Possession, it is in the book Ghostly Rites 2018. And One of Us features Wingreen Uprising. So after that, this is one a lot of people are going to see because by this point, that's when this channel had already started. So these next few books are books that you've actually seen. But they are all still compiled by Samie, therefore they are also part of this video. After that, Samie did a collection of stories where it involves what happens beyond the grave. And I already knew what I was going to write because I already had an idea. I was working on something anyway. So I was like, all right, well, now I know what my short story is going to be sent, or where it's going to be sent. And a lot of you saw the unboxing for this video. Beyond the Grave. So this is one of the earliest unboxing videos I did for this channel. It features my story Risen. And in this story, it's about a guy who's coming home from a funeral home. And the reason everyone is shaken by him coming home is because they were attending his funeral. He's been dead for 2 weeks. Their pastor's reading a little sermon for the funeral, and he wakes up out of the casket like he's getting up out of bed. And throughout the story, it shows what happened, what led to his death, and how he's now back and up and kicking like it's no big deal. So at the time of me doing this video, this is currently the most recent anthology appearance I've done for Samie. And once again, a lot of you have seen this one because it is currently my most viewed video on this channel. And that is Halloween Hell. So my story in this book is Samhain's Revenge. And it roughly talks about someone going against the basic laws of Halloween and what's going to happen for breaking those rules. And shout out to everyone that watched my unboxing video for this one because, like I mentioned, this is currently the most viewed video on this channel. And that is really impressive. So currently, I am in 8 anthologies compiled by Samie Sands. I believe that makes it tied for second. At the time, I can't really say who Samie's tied with. I will say number 1, obviously, since I already did that haul, is Black Carrot Press. But there is one more book that we got to talk about. And again, it's something you've seen on this channel. So in 2019, I wrote a novelette for a publisher for an anthology where I took a bunch of my short stories I had written involving demons. And I put them all together and put little interludes to connect each short story together and released it as a novelette of sorts. Well, that book was only in print for a certain amount of time because once the exclusivity ran out, the publisher chose to take the book out of print. So when I first did that, I had to reach out to Samie first to make sure it was okay to include Anzu Rediscovered. Like I said, everything's coming back around. And she had already said, yeah, absolutely, go ahead, go for it. And when this anthology went out of print, I already knew that I could add more to it. I already had some other ideas. I wanted to expand upon the story. I would have more interaction between the demons in between each demon story. And that book went from being a novelette known as Campfire of Abhorrence into my 5th novella, Tales from the Forbidden Forest. So in this collection, you have a group of demons that are each telling their story about why they are truly the worst demon there is. And one of the stories that I put in this was Anzu Rediscovered, thus making Samie one of the many contributors to Tales from the Forbidden Forest. So, as much as I personally enjoy this book, it is also my shortest novella to date. And I wanted to answer one of the criticisms I've had over the years of some of my books being too small. So this doubles up as a short story collection as well, featuring all of my supernatural short stories. And I needed one or two more just to kind of give the book a little bit of size. So for those that don't want to necessarily pick up anthologies and they want just my work, my stories, Doughboy and Warlock and the Pizza from Malediction are in here as bonus short stories. So it's half novella, half short story collection, and there's 3 stories that are in here. Thank you to Samie for allowing me to do that. And that is not everything. There's a few more things actually. So one of the people I have collaborated with on YouTube in the past is Matthew Mark Hunter. I will have his YouTube channel in the description below. In 2018, after the release of my book, The Paradox Complex, he did a short film to one of the poems, Sad Crying Clown. And since then, him and I have become friends. I've backed a couple of his Kickstarters. He's bought a couple of my books. And he started working on a film last year called Bedbugs, which is an anthology film. Think Creep Show or Trick or Treat, something along those lines. And he wanted to use 2 of my short stories. And one of those 2 short stories that's in Bedbugs is When the Camera Stopped Rolling, that featured in After Undead Wars. So obviously with all this stuff, I always have to ask for permission first just to make sure, everything's good and all. And the response that I got from Samie when I told her, hey, my friend wants to put When the Camera Stopped Rolling in his film. You okay with that? What? So my appearances in anthologies from Samie have not just been, I submit something, I get an acceptance. I've also featured the short stories in my own books. And as I just mentioned, there's going to be a film out soon that's going to feature one of these short stories that I had written for Samie. And I want to say that it's not even just appearing in the anthologies. Over the years, Samie's been very helpful and just being supportive of my work in general. So Samie, whenever you watch this, I just want to say thank you for that. And for a lot of people that watch this channel, she was one of the first people to subscribe and even gave me feedback on what videos she liked and what videos she didn't like. So some of the videos that a lot of you see now, she was one of the people to first give me feedback on hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. So Samie, thank you for that as well. And one of the other people that I have worked with on some of my other books, as well as submitting to the publisher this person works with, is Katie Yarsveld. A lot of you have seen my unboxing video for her novella, Say Never in the Netherlands. Well, the first time that I found out about her work was in Sideshow. So us being in the same anthology was how I found out about her work, which led to me submitting some stuff to Carpathia Publishing's. She did the editing and the cover for Regroup from the Remains from the Chaos Fusion series. And I don't know if her and I would have worked together had I not found her work through Samie. So Samie, thank you for all the help you've done for me over the years. Thank you for some of the amazing work that you've written as well. I've gotten to work with a lot of different people because I've met them through being in your books. So whenever you watch this, I just want to say thank you for everything. I will have Samie's links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter. A lot of Samie's work is also on Wattpad for those that might not be able to afford books at the moment. So you can read pretty much everything she's done. And when I say everything, I mean everything that she's done is probably on Wattpad. So definitely check that out too. And I will also have my own links in the description below. I am on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I have a second channel where I read my poetry and my short stories. I might read one of my short stories that I've submitted to Samie just as a way to kind of cross-collaborate between 2 channels again. A lot of you seem to enjoy the book on this channel, reading on this channel that are both connected. So I might do a little bit more of that. I'll figure out which story I'm going to read. But that does it for this video. If you are new to this channel, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below. I do my best to respond to comments in a timely manner. And that does it for this one. So thank you all for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.